The purpose of bringing this all together is that we can provide a single direction with our arts and cultural offering. Up until now, the facilities have operated very independently.
In his day, Andrew Packer was an A-League regular who oozed finesse. But this week he started his new job, and that's keeping the Jets on the ball.
I'll be there for the players from every step of the way, and I'd really just wanted to build that honest connection between myself and the players. There's a lot of ball work, you know. It's not like the old days where you're smashing the guys with running for an hour.
With players like Marcos Flores coming back from injury, he's already had plenty on his plate.
Marcos's results have been fantastic. His physical results were awesome, you know, and the two other guys that are coming back from knee reconstructions, they're doing really well. They're really ahead of schedule.
Packer has fond memories of his playing days, none more than his part in Sydney FC's first championship winning season.
Yeah, it was really special. I mean, you don't get a chance to win the first one ever again, you know, and that one always will be remembered. And we knew that, you know, before we went into that match, and came away with it that day.
But there's one thing he wants to assure all Jets fans of as the season looms.
We'll be hit the ground running come October 11.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
Hopefully I get some good performances in and get in the squad most of the time, but hopefully it'll be a good week to try. Just got to keep working a little bit harder and maybe put on 5 kilos in the gym and you'll take my spot.
The countdown's on for these keen students. The Hunter women's soccer team has a roster that boasts a Newcastle Jet.
With the W League starting up in September, this is just the starting for me. I haven't actually stopped really since the last season ended, so it'll just be a good kick around and warm up.
After taking a break from competitive surfing to concentrate on his studies, Jake Sylvester couldn't resist the chance to dip his toe in the water.
Just the opportunity arose, and having it in Newcastle was pretty much an easy choice. I was stoked when Andrew got in touch with me, and yeah, it's a bit of an honour so to represent the uni, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
For Hunter basketballer Jill Morgan, this will be her second games, and she believes her side looks the goods this year.
Newcastle's very competitive. We like to win, and I think that's still very much the mentality here, that we want to get the win, and especially in basketball, because it has been a little while since we've got it. So with the team we've got this year, I think we will be really competitive.
And for those who excel, tougher competition awaits.
The ultimate goal for those guys for the week is to finish first or second, and then that gets them a gold ticket to head down to Sydney for the Australian University Games in September, October.
The Eastern Games open on Sunday. Michael Kane, NBN News. It's yet another hit for the mining industry, and today it was workers from BHP Billiton's Mount Arthur coal mine affected.
Very disappointing and appalling behaviour by Mount Arthur to go about announcing these redundancies in the way that they did. Look, they owe their workers better than that.
The CFMEU believes BHP Billiton was in negotiations with workers regarding enterprise agreements for months, and the decision came from left field.
They've always prided themselves on having permanent workers. Well, maybe it's not going to be the case in the future.
Only yesterday, the company was congratulating workers on their efforts.
We can't continue to plan on hope, so we're making the decisions, the tough decisions that need to be made to ensure that we're in control of our own destiny, and fundamentally that is resetting our cost base, pushing ourselves back down the cost curve, back to being a Tier 1 producer again.
89 staff, 55 wages employees and a further 19 contractors, all told their jobs are gone. BHP Billiton's reasoning for the cull is the unsustainable cost of running Mount Arthur.
We are not in a position anymore to hold out for hope that those factors will improve. So fundamentally, we are looking at making significant changes to ensure that we're sustainable for the long term as a business.
The company has confirmed its future in the area is solid.
We just need to get fit and healthy again as a business, as I've said, and ensure that we're here for the long term.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
It's not the World Cup, but there was still plenty of action today at the Hunter Medical Research Institute. More than 500 eager minds arrived ready to learn, and for the HMRI researchers, the value of that opportunity wasn't lost.
The type of research that we're doing here benefits Newcastle first before anywhere else in the world, so it's a really good thing for people to get involved in and see the type of research that we're doing.
30 exhibits were on show, all staffed by the Institute's researchers, and they didn't seem to mind the extra workload.
I believe a very important part of what we do is actually communicating with the public and talking about our research and engaging the community in what we do.
Today's open day gives the community a chance to have a look at the technology the Institute uses, and the answer, it's surprisingly accurate. These beer goggles simulate the view of someone with a 0.25 blood alcohol reading and are so realistic, those who dare to don the eyewear are warned they may feel nauseous. The day is also aimed at inspiring the next generation of researchers.
To be able to stay in the Hunter and to do world-class research essentially is such an amazing thing, and I think it's really great that kids get to come along to an open day like this and see that they can stay here and do world-class research.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
It's an investment that's hoped to become a shining light within the solar industry.
We'd all like solar to continue. It is a viable part of the energy mix.
The 407 kilowatt farm was built in 1997 and was once considered the biggest in the Southern Hemisphere.
The Ausgrid technicians have indicated that this site could go to about 5 megawatts on the existing power lines. So without upgrading the power lines, we could take it from 400 kilowatts up to about 5 megawatts.
After recently acquiring the facility, Andrew Thaler has a master plan to one day see renewable energy create hundreds of jobs in the Hunter. Mr Thaler believes that changing public perception in Singleton on solar energy could unleash an industry which will outlast the mining sector. And with infrastructure already in place, solar farms just like this one could be easily up and running in the future.
The electrical infrastructure that was installed for the mine can be retasked.
And once Andrew has the site back up and running at full capacity, he aims to expand the farm, something backed by the Singleton Mayor.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, council doesn't have a problem with that, and I think it's an advantage to the community myself.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
Kurri Aquatic Centre is just so popular. We need to take on board the response there and why it's so popular, and have other facilities throughout our local government area.
For a club that suffered through a few lean years, the win over Souths did plenty for morale at Lakes.
It's significant for the community as well as the club, which is a good feeling for us, you know. It was something to be proud of in that respect, but mate, back to reality this week, that's for sure.
That reality comes in the form of the undefeated Rosellas. Having squandered a big lead against the Lions, Seagulls coach Dean Noonan knows his troops can't afford a repeat performance on Sunday.
I've reviewed the second half and we were really poor. So we were really poor, and credit to South, they came back at us well. But I think they finally just started to develop a little bit of belief in themselves. What we've got to find now is obviously that little bit of consistency, mate.
Noonan is hoping for another big effort from fullback Hanetti Tua.
Hanetti's out of the Knights 20s last year. He's an outstanding player, but a long way to go with Hanetti, but mate, one to keep an eye on for sure.
Meanwhile, Curry's Byron Warren has taken the early guilty plea on 2 charges relating to hits on Cessnock's Brendan Halad that left him with a broken nose and 7 stitches. In Newcastle and Hunter Rugby, Southern Beaches will try to become the first team to beat Wanderers this season when they host the 2 Blues tomorrow.
We have a pre-game tournament going on there for a week and a bit, you know, competing against the best athletes around the world. Then a week later we leave to Dubai for the World Championships.
As with most bowling clubs, the greens at Raymond Terrace are meticulously manicured. To help with preparations for the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, 18 months ago the club agreed to prepare a special rink for its highest profile player, Natasha Scott. It's as close as possible to the conditions she'll contend with in the UK.
A lot of people would think that it's like playing on your backyard, pretty much. So, you know, you change your bowls, you change your delivery, your mind frame changes, so it's a big difference.
4 years ago in India, Natasha Van Eldik became the youngest person ever to represent Australia in lawn bowls, narrowly missing out on a bronze medal in the pairs. Since then, Van Eldik has married and become Natasha Scott. At 23, she's still the youngest member of the Aussie team. This time around, she'll play as skip in the pairs alongside debutante Carla Odgers and bowl second in the fours as part of an experienced Aussie quartet.
It's going to be tough over there, but I do expect that hopefully that we will come home with a medal. You never know though, things could be different.
To Hunter Tourism, the 2015 Asian Cup is more than just a football tournament.
Through sport and through the world game, we will enter into a new world of trade and opportunity.
Games will be broadcast to 80 countries with a potential reach of 2.5 billion people, while bringing in a projected 45,000 international visitors to town.
We've had an explosion of interest from wholesalers and travel agents right across Asia.
Newcastle will host 4 games in January next year and have already sold more tickets than any other city in Australia, while bookings for accommodation across the Hunter is filling up fast. Japan is the 4-time and defending Asian Cup champions, and it's expected a loyal contingent of fans will flock to the Hunter.
Their first game is here in Newcastle. Can you imagine? There will be hundreds and hundreds of millions of people looking at the surface at Hunter Stadium, but not just the surface.
And what they'll be looking at is the myriad of destinations that can be visited in their downtime, which will pour millions of dollars into the local economy.
The amount of itineraries that are being set that will take them through the byroads of the Upper Hunter, around the coastline of Port Stephens, will leave journeys forever in the hearts of those people that will come here.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
Look, I think 37 lots is probably the maximum you could get into it. I'd like to see it scaled back, and I think that's what residents are hoping for.
They have the opportunity to do lots of courses, and many, including the people from our local Billicourt Barracks, have deployed on an active service in many theatres.
Believe it or not, this is an international competition. In Stroud, the brick and rolling pin throwing contest has been running for more than 50 years, alongside competitions in the townships of Stroud in England, America and Canada. And the locals take it very seriously.
The brick throwing will never die in Stroud. Even if the other countries do pull out, we will continue.
Harder than it looks, a lot harder than it looks, so good luck to all the girls this year.
But girls weren't always included. In 1962, that changed, and at 89 years old, Beryl Bowden has been participating ever since.
They had the brick throwing and for the men, and the women decided they wanted something to do. So they decided they'd throw the rolling pin.
The town is working to keep the tradition alive, getting the younger generation to embrace its throwing power.
I pulled it out and I do this 3 times and then I chuck it. My first go went really far.
And was that fun? A lot more muscle was required to take part in the day's other competition of skill and strength. Tim O'Shaughnessy proving he has what it takes, blitzing the competition.
The secret. Some people say hard and often. I don't know if that's accurate. Good axes. I had a pretty good log just then, so that worked out well for me.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
There's so many great skaters here in Newcastle, it's fantastic.
She's more than happy to represent the University of Newcastle. But for Molly Gray, playing for her country is the ultimate goal.
It's taken a while. It's taken me about 6 years, but it was always something that I was aiming for. So yeah, it's definitely the peak of my career so far.
Having represented the Wallaroos at the last World Cup, Margaret Watson's selection came with a sense of relief.
Yeah, it's an excellent feeling. It was a little bit of a nail biter there leading in because it was a very tough squad to sort of contend with, but got there in the end.
Watson is one of 2 players who'll share the hooking role. Currently nursing a strain in her neck, last night she was running the water. She's hoping to be fighting fit for France.
The hooker generally is a bit of a talker in the forward, so I like to get out there and take control of a pack and really lead the team from the front and throw my head into it.
Molly is keen to start at number 8.
That is the goal, but being brand new to the team, it's sometimes it's out of reach a little bit, but it's definitely something I'm working towards.
Tomorrow, the pair will head to Sydney for a special training session involving players from New South Wales and the ACT. The entire squad will take part in a week-long camp from July 21 before the Wallaroos head overseas. With 12 debutants in the squad, the build-up will be crucial if Australia is going to improve on the 3rd place finish from 2010.
Very new squad, and we have to deal with that kind of nervous energy going into tests, whereas other squads have a little bit more seasoning around them.
Big picture issues with a local focus. The Bust the Budget rally in Newcastle attracted no shortage of passionate protesters opposed to the federal government's budget.
If you look at the number of different groups that are represented here today, there is a huge cross-section of the community of the Hunter are here today.
Almost 100 of the 800 people who attended represented the Hunter's education sector. Teachers travelled from as far as Scone and Merriwar.
We're just calling on the government to do what they promised, to fund years 5 and 6 of the Gonski reforms and to stop the cuts to TAFE.
The NRMA attended to speak about the fuel excise. And cuts to youth welfare also generated a rousing response. Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
We were here 3 years ago when they first opened the doors to visitors, and yes, that's quite remarkable that here we are again, now with a 100,000th visitor.
With first-team keeper Chris Bowling suffering a concussion last week, Adam Pearce had big gloves to fill for Broadmeadow. The Jaffers suffered a setback when Luke Remington was forced to leave early. The rest of the half lacked chances. Pettit's free kick was easily saved. Cale Bradbury only had eyes for goal as he squandered a golden opportunity for Lambton. Just before the break, a Haynes cross was fumbled by Danny Ireland, but the Jaffers cleaned up. The visitors finally hit the front thanks to an impressive header by substitute Riley McNaughton. Pearce then kept the magic alive with some great saves, denying Bradbury twice in quick succession. Dino Fajkovic was the next to be denied. He also had 2 great chances. Former Jets skipper Jobe Wheelhouse calmed the nerves for Lambton. Rubbing salt into Broadmeadow's wounds, substitute Hakan Khan Lee was red carded for dissent.
Trouble certainly came knocking at this house in Rutherford this morning. Just after 9, the driver of the semi-trailer lost control of his rig, which veered to the wrong side of the New England highway, ran through a red light, then crashed into the porch of the family home. A pylon went straight through the truck's windscreen, narrowly missing the 43-year-old behind the wheel.
It appears that he suffered some sort of medical condition. He was stuck in the truck, trapped by confinement for a short time. He was released by ambulance, but thankfully only had superficial injuries.
Emergency services say it's extremely lucky no one was killed. Inside the home, 2 small children and their parents.
All you could hear was all the rubble and the bricks from the front fence sort of going up, and yeah, it was a bit scary. My kids were out in the lounge room. They'd only just left my bedroom, and the truck is butt up against my bedroom window.
The clean-up operation, no small feat, with gas, water and electricity lines all damaged.
Then the first thing you could smell was gas. So I spoke to one of the police officers here, and we basically had to evacuate the house because we're right out the back.
All 4 lanes of the New England Highway were closed for half an hour, while diversions in the westbound ones continued for most of the day. After several hours, finally some movement. The truck finally towed away, much to the disappointment of the smaller residents.
They thought it was great fun. The truck was right outside the screen door. They wanted to go and play with it.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
By day, it's a pleasant, well-worn path, but by night, it's become a case of ride at your own risk.
Whether it was a silly prank or whether it was a deliberate ploy to target cyclists.
Last Friday night, police received reports of booby traps set up along Fernley Track, and that has regulars concerned.
I've walked here today from Cooks Hill, but just people need to be more considerate of other people's needs.
Bike store owner Maurice Maith rides the track twice a day. He says his trip now is never an easy one.
I saw a few accidents, beer bottle, yeah.
Like deliberately?
Oh yeah.
Thousands of people use the Fernley Track every day, and although it's believed there has been tension in the past between cyclists and pedestrians, as far as the cycleways movement's concerned, it hasn't been all that bad.
I think it's actually getting better. It has been bad in the past. I think a lot of the faster cyclists are now using the Brankston Expressway.
Police believe youths could be responsible and are now warning people to be vigilant in an area they find hard to patrol.
It's dark, there's lots of different routes on and off that area down there, so it is difficult for us to patrol that area, that's for sure.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
It's the tiny bright accessory that packs a life-saving punch. And the EBS vest is finally ready for everyday use.
Basically, it's a world's first. It's there's nothing out there at the moment that will save a child and do what this does.
After being immersed in water for more than 5 seconds, it inflates, bringing the wearer to the surface. Fitted with sensors, time modules and pressure valves, it's a lot smarter than it looks.
It knows the difference between rain or a hose and a body of water.
Inventor David Ashard says getting it ready for use is simple. He says he started working on the idea 5 years ago because he wanted to save lives.
I was watching a news article on a young couple that had just lost their little child, and like, I'm an inventor, I've been that all my life, and I thought I'm going to have a try and see what I could come up with, and I came up with the EBS.
For more information, visit the EBS website. Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
It may have been a little chilly, but for these Indigenous Australians, it was still the perfect morning to celebrate their culture. NAIDOC Week officially began in the Hunter, with this year's theme about recognising the contribution of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders to the defence of our country. The teachings of NAIDOC Week, a lesson for the Hunter as a whole.
Events going on, and it's really about the broader community, engaging with the Aboriginal community to learn about our First Nations peoples and more importantly about the culture, the vibrant culture that still exists in Newcastle.
Coinciding with the school holidays, celebrations at Foreshore Park took on a festival feel. Face painting proved the most popular activity, while others dared to ride the teacups. For older members of the crowd, things were a little more subdued. Today's NAIDOC Week event also had a more serious side, with health professionals on hand to provide advice as the nation looks to turn around a history of health inequality.
We don't forget the past, we also remember the struggle of the generations before us, but we also now take the opportunity to celebrate.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
The way he tries to surprise the opponents, that's just how he works. And, for me, the best manager I've worked with.
They might be at the bottom of the NRL ladder, but both the Knights and Sharks have given their fans plenty to cheer about recently. This weekend's clash in the Shire was looming as a battle to avoid the wooden spoon.
They're obviously, in a similar position to us. They've been under a lot of pressure and turmoil, I suppose, over the past couple of weeks. So they're trying to fight and scratch as hard as we are.
The Knights at least haven't given up hope of scraping into the top 8. Their back-to-back wins coincided with Kurt Gidley's shift into the halves alongside Jared Mullen.
I've been enjoying just being able to get my hands on the ball a little bit more, being able to run and sit behind the forwards and motivate those guys. And I think that's a big part of my game, just talk and helping guys out where I can.
With the club's ownership dramas settled for now, the biggest question remains the future of Wayne Bennett.
For me as a player, I've just got to worry about my game and what I've got to work in, and other guys should do the same. Areas they need to improve in, and Wayne will make up his own mind.
Meanwhile, the Knights have unveiled special Rise for Alex wristbands to be sold at every NRL game in round 19. All money raised will help with Alex McKinnon's medical expenses. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. Proving just how serious they are, surfers at the Eastern Uni Games were up at sunrise, braving temperatures of around 4 degrees. Newcastle's Jake Sylvester made a rough start, but he didn't take long to find his feet, doing more than enough to claim top spot in the opening heat. On the court, UTS staged a late fight back to share the points with Newcastle's #1 women's team this morning. Featuring several Hunters representatives such as Kelsey Moss, Jill Morgan and Freya Roebuck, the locals responded to beat Sydney Uni this afternoon. To football, and W-League jet Riley Dobson showed no mercy, leading Newcastle's top girls side to a 9-0 win over the Newcastle Twos. The Matildas squad member scored a first-half hat-trick. Newcastle sits in second spot after day 1, with the University of Western Sydney out in front. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
It's always caused plenty of community debate, but now government tensions over T4 are really heating up.
Yet again, we're seeing the Department of Planning putting forward a recommendation that really does shortchange Newcastle Council in the process.
Councils can pocket 1% of a project's capital investment, and for the $4.8 billion T4 project, that equals $48 million. But the Department of Planning says that's too much, and that developer Port Waratah Coal Services should only pay 1% of the capital works program, just over $528,000.
Understanding that impact, we've conducted a number of studies in here, technical and both social impact studies, which clearly points to us that the level of impact of the project on those services is at best modest.
But Council believes otherwise.
We think for a state government officer to make that recommendation without significant consultation with Newcastle City Council, I think is ludicrous.
And while Port Waratah Coal Services says it's willing to continue consultation with Council, the local government body isn't taking the state's move lying down.
It would be an absolute slap in the face, but I can assure you that that won't occur without Council doing its utmost to change the situation.
Christy Reading, NBN News.
Some resurfacing, some widening of the actual lanes, widening of the shoulders, taking some of the undergrowth back.
It's an industry crying out for more skilled workers, and despite running at capacity, Tocal Agricultural College is struggling to keep up.
While we produce a fair few graduates, we're not keeping up with the demand for skilled people in the workforce.
It's now looking to expand its classes next year, and the area where the biggest shortfalls are is the livestock sector.
We get inquiries all the time for people to work on large livestock properties, cropping properties, mixed farms. So right through the industries there's a shortage of skilled people.
Boyd Holden is a livestock welfare and animal handling consultant. He teaches predicting animal behaviour in a bid to streamline procedures in the industry.
These animals have instinctive behaviour, but educated cattle, educated sheep that are educated in the correct way are easier to handle, safer, improved animal welfare. It's all win-win. And what we need to really try to achieve is consistency across our industries.
Tocal provides full-time programs in many different aspects of agriculture. And when you think of the volatile nature of other industries, a career on the land could be a safe long-term option.
They may go into mining and work and make a fair bit of money and get ahead financially and then settle back into agriculture.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
For these children, Youth Off the Streets East Cessnock Cottage is a home away from home. It provides a safe place to catch up with friends while teaching important life lessons.
We do self-esteem, like we talk about ourselves a lot.
But it relies on the generosity of others, and its future was in jeopardy until recently when the Greater Charitable Foundation stepped in, providing $280,000 towards the charity's Hunter Valley Futures program. Today, Youth Off the Streets founder Father Chris Riley dropped by the cottage to see the difference that gift has made.
The Greater Foundation has certainly been a great, rescuer of this program. When you have kids engaged, you'll see crime rate go down, hopefully more school attendance go up.
The funds have allowed the charity to implement several early intervention programs, one focused on reading.
Do you struggle with reading at school? Sorta.
And so how does it help you to come here?
They do it after school, and when we go back to school we can do it for read again.
And does that make you feel good?
Yeah.
Have some books and we do sight cards and just help them get that confidence.
And for parents, that support is invaluable.
It's a wonderful thing. Father Ollie does so much for the community. It's fantastic.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
We've just entered the detailed design phase of the project and to recognise the Indigenous significance of the site.
Very exciting time of year because until this point we really don't know that all of our hard work and energies have paid off, and when we see a full pouch with 4 joeys, best possible result.
Tomorrow night in NBN News, the 3-year-old Hunter boy facing the fight of his life, leukemia. How devoted family and friends have rallied around their little superhero and provided the ultimate show of support. That's tomorrow night.
It's always an honour to be captain of a team and you know, to support not only the team but also be a connect for the coach. It's possible, so we'll see what the coach wants.
The boys from Charles Sturt added some colour to the competition, their keeper donning the best costume of the game so far. The Bathurst-based students had plenty of support, but Newcastle had the firepower. Blake Jarrett opened the scoring for the home side in its 5-1 win. Both the men's and women's sides are on top of their pools following day 2. The host university is proving just as dominant in touch footy. The mixed team features former Hockey Rood Jade Warrender. She played her part in a 5-1 win over the University of New South Wales. On the court, the University of Western Sydney gave Newcastle's #1 men's basketball side a run for its money. But with a host of current and former Newcastle Hunters in the squad, including Matt Doolan, the home side ran away with the match in the second half. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. They've sailed together since they were kids, but it took the prospect of another kid to see Daniel and Nathan Van Kerkhoff join forces competitively.
Daniel's wife fell pregnant, who he normally sails with, and just sort of fell into place like that.
Recently, the pair has been practicing on borrowed equipment. An 18-foot catamaran that belongs to national junior champion Madawi's Lockie White. Their Viper competition boat is already heading for France.
It's a little bit shorter than this one, only 16 foot long, weighs around 120 kilos, very, very fast, top speed of around 55 kilometres an hour.
Born and raised in Port Stephens, 34-year-old Daniel and 28-year-old Nathan feel just as comfortable on Lake Macquarie and, for that matter, any other body of water. Their win at the Asia-Pacific titles in New Zealand over Easter has only added to expectations ahead of the world titles.
Quite a few wins under our belt now, and we seem to have really clicked as a combination. So I think a podium finish, if we didn't walk away with a podium finish, we'd be a little bit disappointed in ourselves.
I'm really not 100% sure what to expect just because I haven't been to that kind of field before. And honestly, it's a little bit nerve-wracking for me.
Like most siblings, they don't always agree, but they claim it's all smooth sailing on the water.
It's handy sailing with your brother because that connection's always there, and believe it or not, we actually don't fight on the boat.
We probably fight a bit more on the shore, but yeah, we're pretty in sync on the boat, and I actually think it helps us being brothers out there on the water.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.